There's a silent thief in your life. It's not the kind that breaks into your house at night or steals money from your wallet, but the kind that steals your chances, your dreams, your peace of mind. That thief is you. This is not the kind of self-blame that keeps you trapped in guilt. We are the ones standing in our own way. Psychologists call it self-sabotage, but I call it something more personal. The invisible enemy within. We often imagine that failure comes from bad luck, lack of resources, or the cruelty of the world. And yes, those things are real. But how many times have you been given an opportunity and found yourself making excuses not to take it? How many times have you wanted to change, to leave that toxic job, to start a business, to speak up for yourself, yet somehow you didn't? Not because someone stopped you, but because you stopped yourself. I remember reading the story of a woman named Claire. She was brilliant, hardworking, and always dreaming of starting her own art studio. But every time she saved enough money, she would suddenly make a big unnecessary purchase or take on too much work until she was too exhausted to create. Years went by. Her dream remained a dream. When asked why she never started, she'd say, "I guess the timing wasn't right." But deep down, Claire knew the truth. She was scared of failing. And so, she made sure she never had to try. This is the cruel paradox of self-sabotage. It often looks like procrastination, perfectionism, overthinking, bad timing, or even being too busy. But beneath all those masks is one feeling: fear. The psychology of fear in self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is not a random bad habit. It is a survival strategy, one your brain created to protect you from pain. When you aim high, there's always the risk of falling hard. Always the risk of getting hurt. So your brain, in its misguided kindness, whispers, "Let's not risk it. Let's stay safe." But safe quickly becomes a prison. And the bars of that prison, they're made of your own choices. What's dangerous is that self-sabotage doesn't feel like an enemy. It often feels reasonable. I'll start when I'm more prepared. I just need a little more research. It's not the right time. These sound smart. They sound responsible. But over time, they keep you exactly where you are. The moment you catch yourself, want you to think of the last time you had a chance to do something important, and you didn't. Maybe it was applying for a job, telling someone how you felt, or simply saying no to something that drained you. Do you remember the excuses you told yourself? Now ask, were those excuses facts, or were they fears dressed as facts? The truth is, most of the walls in our lives are not made of brick. They're made of our own beliefs, a story we all lived. There's an old story about an elephant tied to a small wooden post. When it was young, the chain was strong enough to keep it from escaping. Years later, even as a huge and powerful adult, it still never tried to break free because it believed the post could still hold it. That's how self-sabotage works. You learned certain limits early in life, and now you obey them, even when they no longer exist. In the next part, we'll dive into where these limits come from and how childhood wounds, past failures, and even success itself can turn you into your own worst enemy. You might think self-sabotage is loud, obvious, like a train wreck you can see coming, but often it's a whisper, a silent pull in the opposite direction of what you want. Sometimes it comes disguised as logic. I'm not ready yet. It's safer to wait. I'll start when the time is right. Other times, it wears the costume of self-protection. I'm just trying not to get hurt again. I need to avoid disappointment. And the cruel irony, these voices don't feel like enemies. They feel like you. The unseen patterns, let's imagine you've been given an opportunity, maybe a promotion, maybe a relationship, maybe an invitation to do something you've always dreamed of. Instead of running toward it, you find yourself hesitating. You start noticing every possible flaw in the situation. You delay responding. You procrastinate making the decision. From the outside, it might look like indecision. It's a quiet war, one where you're both the attacker and the defender. Self-sabotage doesn't always slam the door in your face. Sometimes it simply lets the moment pass, and the opportunity slips away unnoticed. Why the mind does this self-sabotage is not born from laziness or lack of willpower. It's often a learned survival mechanism. Maybe as a child, you learned that standing out was dangerous, that success drew unwanted attention or jealousy. Maybe you were taught, directly or indirectly, that wanting more than you had was greedy or selfish. Or maybe the people you trusted disappointed you, so you started disappointing yourself first, as a way to avoid the pain of hope. This is the twisted comfort of self-sabotage. If you destroy the dream yourself, no one else can take it from you. The tragedy is that your past wounds are writing your present story. And if left unchecked, they will keep writing your future. To dot the invisible walls we build, sometimes self-sabotage is active. We overspend, overeat, overcommit. Sometimes it's passive. We avoid, we delay, we let opportunities expire. But at its heart, self-sabotage is a prison made of invisible bars. You can't see them until you run into them. And by then, it's too late. You've already stopped moving forward. These invisible walls are built from Fear of failure, fear of success. Yes, success can be terrifying, deep-seated beliefs about what you deserve, the stories you tell yourself about who you are. And here's the kicker. Your brain thinks it's keeping you safe. When protection turns into prison, protection is necessary when there's real danger. But when the danger is imagined, when it's just the shadow of an old wound, protection becomes a cage. That cage might look like saying, "I'll start tomorrow." Every single day, declining opportunities because it's not the right time. Quitting before you even really try, so you can avoid the sting of failure. And the saddest part, you might even convince yourself this is wisdom, when it's really fear in disguise. Your inner saboteur is not your enemy. It's a wounded part of you, trying and failing to protect you. It doesn't need punishment. It needs understanding. When we think about self-sabotage, we often imagine it as a single act, a person blowing up their career, ending a relationship, or abandoning a project just before it's finished. But in truth, self-sabotage rarely announces itself so dramatically. It often arrives disguised, wearing masks so convincing that we mistake them for virtues. One of the most common masks is perfectionism. We tell ourselves we are simply striving for excellence. We say we're not ready yet because we want to make sure everything is flawless. But behind that polished excuse lies a deep fear. If we finish and show the world our work, it can be judged. And if it's judged, we might not survive the verdict. So, perfectionism becomes the perfect hiding place for a fear of failure. We stall, we polish, we rewrite, we redo, until time quietly kills the opportunity. Another mask is humility. Now, humility is a beautiful quality, but there is a counterfeit version of it that is pure self-sabotage. It whispers, "Don't put yourself forward. Don't take credit. Stay small. Stay invisible." And so we let others take the spotlight, not out of generosity, but out of fear of being seen. We convince ourselves we're being humble, but in truth, we're protecting ourselves from the vulnerability of recognition. Then, there is rationality, the voice of common sense that can talk us out of our own dreams. It says, "That's too risky. That's unrealistic. That's not practical." And sometimes it's right. But more often, it's simply the fear of the unknown dressed up in reasonable clothing. It sounds wise, so we follow it. And slowly, our life becomes smaller and smaller. These masks are dangerous because they give self-sabotage the cover it needs to thrive undetected. They allow us to feel justified in our inaction, comfortable in our limitations. And the longer we wear them, the more we forget what's underneath. Why we wear the masks of the self-saboteur, are not random. They are crafted by years of experience. If you grew up in an environment where mistakes were punished, you might wear perfectionism to protect yourself. If you were taught that standing out invites jealousy or attack, humility might feel like safety. If you were told to be realistic over and over, rationality might seem like the only way to survive. These masks keep us aligned with our old environments, but they also keep us trapped in them, even when the threat is no longer real. It's like carrying an umbrella long after the storm has passed. Only this umbrella blocks out the sun as well. The cost of the masks are heavy. They may keep us safe from certain dangers, but they also rob us of certain joys. Perfectionism may protect us from criticism, but it also protects us from the satisfaction of completion. False humility may keep us from embarrassment, but it also keeps us from the pride of achievement. Over-rationality may guard us against failure, but it also locks the door to possibilities we've never even imagined. When you wear these masks for long enough, you forget that they are not your face. You start believing that you are the perfectionist, the overly humble one, the hyper-rational skeptic. But underneath each mask is something raw, alive, and capable, a self that wants to try, to risk, to create, to step into the light. Seeing through the disguise, the first step in breaking free is noticing the disguise. When you feel the urge to wait until it's perfect, pause and ask yourself, is this about quality, or is it about fear? When you hold back from sharing an idea, ask, am I being humble, or am I hiding? When you find yourself saying, that's not practical, ask, is this truly wisdom, or just fear in a clever suit? This kind of self-questioning can be uncomfortable. It can feel like catching yourself in a lie you've told for years. But remember, you didn't create these masks because you are weak. You created them because you are human. They were once your armor, and now, perhaps, it is time to set them down. Unmasking without fear, taking off the mask, doesn't mean throwing yourself recklessly into danger. It means allowing yourself to act even when fear is present. It means delivering the project when it's good enough, not flawless. It means accepting praise when it's given without deflecting it. It means letting yourself explore something bold, even if it doesn't look sensible on paper. And here's the paradox. When you take off the mask, you may feel exposed, but you will also feel lighter. And that lightness is freedom. A question to carry the next time you hesitate. Ask yourself, what mask am I wearing right now? And then dare to take it off. You might discover that the face underneath is braver than you ever imagined. Self-awareness is the flashlight that illuminates the dark corridors of our behavior. Without it, we walk in circles, repeating the same self-sabotaging patterns, making the same mistakes, and wondering why nothing changes to break the cycle of self-sabotage. You first have to catch yourself in the act. Not after the damage is done, not after the opportunity is gone, but in the moment when your mind starts whispering its familiar script. You're not ready. They won't like you. This is going to fail anyway. It's in that exact moment you need to pause and say, "Oh, I know this voice. I've heard it before, and I know where it comes from." This is why reflective practices are so powerful. Journaling, meditation, honest conversations with people who aren't afraid to tell you the truth. These tools help you step out of autopilot and notice the subtle ways you undermine yourself. Here's the tricky part. Self-awareness is not the same as self-criticism. When you notice a sabotaging thought, the goal is not to attack yourself for having it. The goal is to become curious about it. Where did this thought come from? Is it actually true? Or is it just an echo from an old wound? The more you trace these thoughts back to their origin, the more power you reclaim over them. You start to see that self-sabotage is rarely about laziness or incompetence. It's often a form of self-protection, an outdated strategy your mind learned long ago. Let's take an example. Imagine you've been offered a big speaking opportunity. It could advance your career, open new doors. But suddenly, you find yourself procrastinating on preparing your speech. You tell yourself, "I work better under pressure," but deep down, you know the truth. You're afraid of standing in front of people. When you trace this fear back, maybe you remember being laughed at in school when you stumbled over your words. Your mind decided speaking in front of people is dangerous. Avoid it if possible. That belief became part of your operating system. Now, every time a speaking opportunity comes up, your brain tries to protect you not by saying no directly, but by sabotaging your preparations so you have an excuse. Self-awareness allows you to catch this loop and challenge it. You can say to yourself, "Yes, I'm nervous. Yes, my brain is trying to protect me. But this is not the same as that moment in school. I am not that powerless child anymore." Another layer of self-awareness is recognizing your behavioral tells little signs that you're slipping into sabotage mode. Some people notice they get unusually tired before a big opportunity. Others start over-focusing on small, irrelevant details. Some pick fights with loved ones to create drama and distract themselves from the task at hand. When you learn your own tells, you can intervene earlier. It's like noticing the weather changed before a storm. You can prepare instead of being caught in the rain. But self-awareness also has a deeper, more uncomfortable role. It forces you to take responsibility. You can't blame luck, timing, or other people forever. When you see your own patterns clearly, you have to admit, sometimes, the person blocking your path is you. This realization can feel heavy, but it's also liberating. Because if you are the one creating the obstacle, then you also have the power to remove it. The path forward is not to erase fear or insecurity, but to notice them and still move toward what matters. It's choosing action over avoidance. It's replacing the old script from I can't to I will try. From I'm not ready to I will grow as I go. And that choice begins with awareness. If self-awareness is the flashlight, then self-compassion is the battery that keeps it on. Without compassion, awareness can turn into a cruel spotlight that burns you with shame. With compassion, awareness becomes a gentle guide, showing you the path forward, without punishing you for where you've been. In the next part, we'll explore exactly how to replace self-sabotage. Why small, consistent actions matter more than any grand plan. Most people try to let go the same way they try to clean a room without turning on the light. They avoid looking directly at the mess. We rush toward closure because sitting with pain feels unbearable. But here's the paradox. What you refuse to feel will keep asking for your attention, louder, sharper, more destructively until you do. Meeting your resentment without armor means allowing yourself to see it fully. Not as a moral failure, not as a weakness, but as a signal. Ask yourself, what boundary was crossed? What value was violated? These are the fingerprints of the wound. It's tempting to skip this step, to jump straight into forgiveness because it sounds noble. But forgiveness without acknowledgement is just emotional bypassing. A way of painting over cracks without repairing the wall beneath. You cannot heal what you pretend not to feel. And you cannot release what you have not yet fully held in your hands. The courage is not in letting go. The courage is in staying long enough to understand why it hurts. Letting go is not erasing the past. It's changing your relationship with it. When you've sat with the wound long enough to hear its truth. When you've honored the part of you that was hurt, you begin to notice something shift. The resentment feels lighter. The story loses its grip. You stop rehearsing the old scenes in your mind because you no longer need them to explain who you are. Letting go doesn't mean it didn't matter. It means it mattered. And now it no longer controls you. Sometimes the release feels like a deep breath you didn't know you were holding. Sometimes it feels like finally walking out of a room you'd been pacing in for years. And one day, without ceremony, you realize you can think about them without pain. That is the quiet victory. That is the freedom you've been carrying inside you all along, waiting for you to open the door. And so, as we close this journey, remember this: the greatest battles we face are often within ourselves, can also guide us to the shore. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If today's reflections resonated with you, let's keep this conversation going. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with someone who might need to hear these words. Your support is what allows this channel to keep creating thoughtful, healing content for our growing community.